Okay, so introductions. My name's Yuri. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a mathematician, and I'm going to go through how to use this library I've created, starting from creating a new project through recording, uploading, mastering, and uploading. So I am going to assume that some knowledge of web development in React, but start off, here are sort of the sites that will be convenient to have bookmarked. So the React's website and their documentation. You will also need Node.js in order to compile TypeScript files, this is written in TypeScript, so as opposed to just plain, that's not the right website. So yeah, TypeScript will be very handy to keep this site bookmarked as well. For documentation, I really like this website devdocs.io that has a whole bunch of different documentation things put together, and you can just start typing like CSS and then or whatever type of like Java documentation you want to look up. So for actually getting started, I'm going to start by cloning this tutorial repository. So this is an example of a completed project, as opposed to just sort of a bare bones minimal project structure. But that might be easier to use when we're getting started. So go git clone tutorial. Okay, so follow the instructions. So npm install to install all the different packages and webpack and stuff. Now node server.js. And now if we go to localhost 8080, hopefully. Okay, so we've got, I'll try to unmaximize this. So now we've got this tutorial video that I put, this is the video that's on the front page of the website for it. Sort of goes through and shows how to use a lot of the features. So
once you've coded your rack,
I'm going to open up a couple other console windows in the same directory. Use just yet. So start off, we'll just take a look at like the project structure. So index.html, this is the make my font size bigger. This is just the HTML file that you're seeing here. So this is the HTML file where the Ractive is embedded. So there's not actually, since this is in React, there's not that much like code here. The actual code will get loaded by React into main. Then, so package.json, this is pretty standard. So we've got all the packages with RP in front are sort of the Ractive-Player namespace. webpack is going to tell this how to compile our TypeScript into, just the entry point TypeScript into a single bundle file. So bundle.js is the final JavaScript file that gets created. And then server.js is what we were running in here. So this does a few things. This has a live reload, is running a live reload server, so that'll automatically refresh when we make changes. And then, serving this. So the lib, there's 3 directories here, lib, source, and style. So style has a bunch of Stylus files, so these are going to get compiled to CSS. Actually need to install this. I just got a new laptop. My last one, several of the keys weren't working anymore, so anytime I wanted to type a T, I had to copy and paste it from a document. So this one works now, but I'm still just getting it set up. So here's where all the style files are, like the CSS stuff is put. So then style, this is like the entry point for that. Source is all the code for this particular Ractive. And then lib, so the way I've done it here is I've put some other files in lib. Once you start building, like creating your own repository of content, you might have your own like library folder, so that'll contain stuff that's like shared between a lot of different Ractives. So source is like the stuff for just this one specifically, and then lib is stuff that could get shared between them. So as you build up your repository, you'll maybe build up your own library of things, and then maybe eventually those can, like a lot of the separate packages that I mentioned here, like all of these were originally stuff in my library folder that eventually got extracted into packages. So the entry point for this is index.tsx. A lot of stuff here is sort of commented out that like you are often going to like comment stuff out or do stuff while you're recording, but then like not have it in the final version. So this is a little bit overwhelming at first. I'll go through and explain all the different like what's going on here. But to get started, let's just try to modify what's on the first slide. So I'm going to comment out everything that's in here. I don't want to erase it because I'll come back to it. Then I'm going to create a new file for this demo. So demo.tsx. Then just going to copy everything in the intro into demo.tsx. And then we'll put demo here. And feel free at any time to just like unmute yourself and interrupt me to ask questions. Okay, so So when we make changes to the TypeScript, so here's where we are going to use the other two windows. So we have one console window running the server. So to compile our TypeScript changes, we'll run webpack. Oh, maybe I do. Do I not have webpack? Okay, so if you haven't, if your system is not set up this way, you should have export path. You should always have the .bin subfolder of your current, of like node modules of the current directory in your path folder. So now if I type webpack -- watch, now it'll detect the webpack binary in there. Yeah. So let's see if that reloaded. Yeah, okay, so now it still thinks the video is like 8 minutes and 13 seconds, but we don't have anything past the starting slide. Now we can go and like change around with this. So in demo, let's strip out most of the code and get rid of all of this. Don't need any of that either. Okay. So this is sort of the minimal amount of stuff that we'll need. I'm just going to get rid of all of this and put it back in later. So we can sort of see one step at a time, like what the different things are needed for. So the main things we've got here are utils, and then these during and from utilities from the utils.authoring. So what during does is doing is show how this works first, and then break it down. Okay, so now it just says hello world, and then once I go forward a little bit, it says this is my very first Ractive. So the way this library is built is very much similar to like slideshows, where you kind of just successively reveal things, because that's sort of the original use case was for like sort of informational, educational videos like that. So the how you put in like indicate where you want events to happen is in what's called markers. So when you're viewing a Ractive, you can press W to go back one marker and E to go forward one marker. So I chose these keys just because they were sort of convenient on the keyboard. So if you're in here, then pressing like E and W will go back and forth between this. So we'll use this later when we're recording, and it's also very useful when we're developing in terms of getting around. So it's a little bit, if I delete all these markers right now, it might get angry, because if I still have code referencing markers that no longer exist, then it'll like throw an error to prevent us from accidentally making mistakes. But so let me just go and remove other things that are referencing explicit markers, and then I think I'll comment all of this out. Okay, and so also the markers, the list of markers in here is how it like detects how long the how long the
HTML, CSS
video is. So now it's down to like 0 minutes and 22 seconds. So these have been filled in with actual values from the recording stage. When you are just starting, so if you're creating a new thing, you can just put like any values in here you want. So I tend to just like copy and paste something with like 1 minute, and then yeah, that'll get filled in later. So should we mention right now, there's sort of I like to break down the stage, or break down the process of writing these into 4 stages. So there's the creative stage, which is deciding what you want to say. So sort of nothing I can do to, the library is not part of that. That's sort of the hardest part. And I think even irrespective of the interactivity, if I can make just the creative part the hardest part versus, and then the coding much easier, that by itself, even without interactivity, is I think a big win for the library. Here's how you increase font size. Okay. Then authoring. So authoring is the process of coding, like writing the code for this Ractive. And that's going to be sort of the longest part, and I'll sort of go through how to do each of the steps, each of the stages quickly, so you can see like how to actually get something up on your website, and then I'll go back and like dive in depth into authoring. So recording is where you like record audio and stuff, and like the timing of various things, and then mastering, those final touches, and uploading it to a server. So let's go back into markers. So in our code, I had these 2 during and from utilities. So what during does is it'll set a piece of content to be visible whenever the marker name starts with the string you pass. So I tend to break up my content into different slides. And so like the playback slide says, okay, this is going to be visible during playback. This is going to be visible during player. And so then I can put all of that like block of content into one file, and it'll like be independent of the other stuff. And so it'll only be visible when the marker name starts with this. And then from will make a piece of content visible starting at a name. So let me do first this. So, and you can also, you can do this just with one marker name. So if we save that, live reload will refresh this. Oh, and it's angry. So, okay, error marker intro.first/first does not exist. Actually, in my usual setup, I have live reload set to only refresh when CSS refreshes, or to only update CSS, so it doesn't like reload the whole page every time you edit JavaScript. Annoying. So intro/first and oops. Intro/cool. And again, I can just put like whatever numbers here for the duration. Doesn't matter yet. Okay, so hello world. Now navigating using my E and W keys. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. You can also, if you put a second value in from, then it'll stop being visible like at the second one. So now say hello world, my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. The other one is gone. Now it's important to point out that like the spacing of this is still where it was before. So it still has the same spacing as if that other thing were there. So the way that the show hiding functionality works, so here you can actually see, so the data from first, data from last, data during, those were attributes added by these utilities. And then here it's got style, opacity 0, pointer events none. So that is going to make it like invisible, but it's still going to take up space. So the rationale for doing this as opposed to display none is, or just like not rendering, like removing the code is, in my original use case, I was using a lot of math jacks, which takes time to render. So if I had like removed stuff from the document and then put it back in, there would be like a layout flash. So the way all of my videos are done is to actually renders all of the HTML content in the entire video and then just selectively show hides it, which surprisingly does not actually cause me any performance issues. But you probably could get away with like just show hiding or like removing stuff from the document. And in some cases, you might want to like have stuff take up space, even when it's not there. Maybe in other cases you wouldn't. Depends on what you're doing. The other thing is that the reason for hiding this with opacity 0 and pointer events none, as opposed to say visibility hidden, is that this basically if it realizes it needs to hide one particular element like this when we're in a different slide, then it doesn't have to like go in and hide everything below that. Okay. So we've done some just very basic, put in some markers, put in some text. And we also show you how to do styling. So so this is a little convoluted because I'm using a CSS preprocessor. So I should probably just make a file for that, I guess. So I'm going to just copy this into, I should probably add this to the tutorial repository. I'll make a file for this comment, this command. Okay, so we'll just say what this is doing. Compress is like it's going to create an optimized CSS file, so this is not superhuman readable. And then the important part here is include CSS and include. It's going to also include plain CSS files, and it's going to allow importing CSS files from node modules. That's because a lot of the plugins that I've developed also like ship their own CSS. So here, it's importing the CSS from like the RP Paint and RP Prompt modules, which I'll like cover later. If you don't want to use a CSS processor, you could also like link the CSS for these in index.html. That's what we're doing. Okay, so now it's watching. So these are sort of the three console windows we're using. One is to run the server. One is to compile TypeScript. One is for CSS. So now if we do, I don't want this to be so big. Okay, so now going to
for
trying to move the window. Okay, so let's go and add a CSS line, say h1, color purple. Great, and so what happened there is, like, Stylus was watching and like compiled our CSS changes, and then since we have live reload, it like updates, it refreshed the CSS automatically. So it's really nice to be able to just like, make aesthetic changes to your video and just see the previews happen immediately, even while the video is running.
Into yours.
And like we can have, this is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. Like P, color green, font size 3M, and just updates right in the browser immediately. Okay, so there's a lot more to say about the process of authoring a Ractive, but let's sort of go through how to record and upload it. Go from having something on your computer to something that other people on the internet can watch, and then we'll go and do a deep dive through all the content and different things you have to do to make it compatible. Are there any questions up till this point? Okay, so for recording, we're going to have to go in and enable some recording mods. So the recording stuff is commented out by default. Eventually it would be nice to have just a slick way of switching between production and development mode. But so to get so I'm going to uncomment here. This is the recording CSS. And this is the recording JavaScript. Oh, and also this is, you might want for development to actually like comment all of this out and then comment all of this out and then use these scripts instead. These are going to have like more descriptive error messages from React, for example. But so if we enable the recording CSS and JavaScript, and then we go into index.tsx. So the way this is implemented is these controls, these video controls, are very highly customizable. And so the plugins are usually implemented as custom controls. So here I have to uncomment import recording control from RP recording. Then here, so there's a few other commented out controls we'll use. We'll enable the recording control. And actually these plugins, so like the code recorder plugin is for the like live code playback example that I have, but for now we won't have any plugins. Okay, so that now that we've reloaded that, we get this new recording control down here. If we open that up, oops. It'll give us, so it doesn't have, we're not allowed to record audio yet. That's a bit tricky, but if we record markers, then we can start going, and has some, there's like keyboard controls here to start and stop recording. and you can customize these. So we do this. So I might need to change this. Let's try, oops. Control-2 work. It's not good. Navigator. Okay, so, oh yeah, I think right now there's a bug where it's actually going to record everything, even if I tell it, like, I've only selected audio, not to record audio. But since we're going to want to record audio eventually anyway, as well have to say how to do that now. So, yeah, so as explained here, in order to record audio, you need to be accessing the page over HTTPS. So that's a bit annoying. Probably the easiest way to do this is if you have a server that you have access to that has like an SSL certificate, is to just upload it there. So I'm going to do that. But this explains how, if you have like a local server, how to get SSL, like HTTPS set up there. So this is probably one of the most annoying parts, though. So I'm going to upload this to a directory on Ractive-Player.org. So sftp rpdocs. That is it's not good. Ew. What is... I see. So this is a new computer, and I haven't configured the... yeah, so I don't have access to that site. Give me 1 second to figure this out. All right, sorry about that. So now I've gotten my SSH or SFTP working again. So we'll go SFTP to the Ractive-Player.org server. So Ractive-Player.org/demo. There's nothing there right now, but if we put index.html, put bundle.js, and put style.css. I think that should be all we need. Yeah. Okay, and so now, and since we've got the recording stuff, the recording JavaScript enabled, it's prompting me to like allow access to the microphone. And so this is why, actually, like I made sure to strip all the recording JavaScript before, like from the recording before uploading it that I had uploaded before, because if you leave that in, even if you leave the JavaScript file for even if you even leave this in without like loading it in index.tsx, your viewers might be prompted for like allowing microphone access, which you don't want. Okay, so now we have our thing on an HTTPS server. So now we can record. I think this will work now. So I press this to start recording. Maybe I press this to start recording. Okay, great. So this works. So now let's actually refresh this.
Yuri, I cannot see your screen.
Oh,
screen sharing at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I forgot to turn screen sharing back on.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry. So what I did, that's very stupid of me. So what I did was I uploaded my files from SS to this server. So now this is, you can access this on /demo. Yeah, what I had done here is just going through SFTP into here, and then the only things I needed to put were the index.html, bundle, and style file. Can you mute yourself? I'm getting just a bit of feedback.
Sure.
Yeah, so now from here, we go. I'll set these to be my shortcuts for recording. I will say, okay, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. Okay, and so now I'm given a couple things here. So these markers, so these are the recorded durations. So now I'll paste over this. I need to make sure I select the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now, that's where the actual durations get filled in. And then we'll download this audio file. Where did that go? Okay, so now we want to put that recording into our Ractive. So yeah, this if I save this, and then in our local version of this, now it's like the duration is now at 7 seconds. So to put the audio file in, first, let me go and sort of explain how this is set up. So we've got the audio file is put in index.tsx. You have one audio file for the whole Ractive. And then this is saying, like, load the file from media URL/audio. So what is media URL? So that's defined here. So this is in just a file called media URL. So this is, like, in development, media URL is your local, like your own computer. In production, you might want to have, like I have it set up so like all my audio files are hosted on like a CloudFront S3 server. So this, I guess Ractives, you don't have to deal with like video hosting, like uploading your video to YouTube just for hosting, but you still have to find somewhere to host the audio files. So when we're developing, we'll set media URL to be dot, but then once we upload it, we'll switch it to this. And again, this would be, you can probably have a cleaner version of this with like separate bundles for production and development. So if I change media URL to dot, I still need to actually create a folder called audio in here, and then put audio.webm in there. And the audio, like the audio file that I made when I created the original tutorial demo is not in there because I've sort of said, like, don't include any media files in the Git repository. But so now if we play this, okay, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. I'm not sure if you could hear the audio from that, but it was playing the audio that I had set and like was synced up to the So like when I press the markers. So now this is sort of, we've done the basic recording step. The final stage, I said, is mastering. So like uploading this to a server where everyone else can use it. So we've already seen, I guess, like the uploading part, but there's a whole bunch more steps that are required for like making sure this actually works smoothly. So here in the documentation, so I should have introduced the documentation site. So there's a reference section, which is not. Why is that's weird? Okay, so I have this mastering checklist that explains like a checklist of different things to go through before making sure your Ractive is like production ready. So mastering checklist. So one is to remove all of the, what is this? So to remove the references to like the recording, RP recording module, because as I said, that'll give your viewers like a do you want to allow recording audio thing that you don't want. Okay, so remove both of those, and then go back and also strip it out here. It's a little, kind of clumsy to manually switch all this stuff out when you're switching between development and recording. If I knew more about webpack, you can like configure a way, I'm sure, to just do that more smoothly with the production and development like bundle or entry point. Okay, so that so now like the recording control is stripped out and it's not prompting us for that. Okay, so remove the RP recording script tag. Step 2 we'll talk about later. This is for mobile compatibility. Also, we will deal with that later. Okay, so for joining audios into a file, into a single file, so you can record like your Ractive in several different segments, and it's pretty easy to just concatenate like the different marker lengths together. But the audio files, you need to join into a single audio file. That is due to something called the web autoplay policy. So the web autoplay policy, which is actually really important to understand in general for working with this. Basically, a web page cannot start playing an audio file or like a media, anything with audio, without the user interacting with it in some way. So like clicking on something. So that means like if this video were just running and it went through one audio file and then it got here and then you tried to switch to another audio file, like we wouldn't be allowed to do that. So this is why you have to join everything into one audio file. If you were trying to do something more like creative with this, where you wanted to switch the audio depending on like the user making a choice, so it's like a choose your own adventure video, you could do that, but what you would have to do is somehow like if you had two buttons here and they like click which adventure they want to go on, in that like once they have that click, use that click event to swap out the audio file. And again, you wouldn't be able to just like swap out an audio segment in one piece of the video. You would have to like load it into another audio thing for the like whole video, unless you want had a way of like making sure they were always clicking before going through it. Okay, so join audio files into a single file. We only have one here. So then we also need to fix the audio files that were produced. So right now we have just a WebM audio file. So actually I'll do step 6 before step 5. So we want to convert. We want to convert the WebM file, or also make a MP4 version, because Safari doesn't support WebM audio. Okay, so if we do that, now we have an audio.web or audio.mp4 file. But we also need to, should be split across 2 lines. Not sure why formatting got broken. We also need to fix the webm file that was produced because it doesn't have the metadata that's needed for seeking. So, yeah, I think if we do this right now. Okay, hello world. Yeah, again, I'm not sure if you could hear the audio on that, but like I started it in the middle of the video, and when I pressed play, it was playing the audio from the very start because the webm file didn't have the correct metadata for just seeking to a point. So to fix the webm file, do this, and then rename audio fixed to audio. Okay, so now we have 2 audio files that are working correctly. Generate thumbnails for the video. I'm going to skip over that for now. It's also sort of complicated. Make sure there's CSS if you want to, if you're using like custom fonts. So like, I think here, yeah, I was using Allegria font for like this, and so just to make sure that you don't, if you're using fonts that you've like installed locally on your computer, might not show up for your viewers if you're not doing this. You might not realize that. So it's good to, I mean, as with all websites, it becomes particularly important for here is to like test on multiple platforms. CSS, make sure media URL. So some of these are just like optimization things, like compressing the JavaScript. Yes, I guess this is compressed, compressing the CSS and whatnot, and then like make sure media URL is set to your production's asset host. So again, if you had some like S3 CloudFront server where you're hosting all your files, then you would comment this out and uncomment this after uploading your audio stuff to that to your media host. We're going to stay here with I guess just having the audio stuff locally. So now I have to upload the audio, upload. Again, for my like actual server setup, I have a much slicker way of doing this. Git and auto deploy to Heroku and whatnot. Okay, so now leave page. All right, so now we've got, okay, hello world, our recorded video with the correct like markers and timing. This is my very first rack, and we can seek to like any part in the video, and the audio will work. So this is most of the steps of like going through and like getting the thing you've created onto a server. I guess the last steps are about like, which I should add a bit about here, is then like right now, so far we've been going and viewing just like the HTML file containing the Ractive. Then what you want to do, of course, is like embed that somewhere on a page. So how you do that is you put an iframe referencing iframe. This isn't an iframe. Yeah. So you put an iframe just pointing to that HTML file containing the Ractive. And then here I have some CSS. So this is just setting it to this 62.5% padding bottom thing. This is a trick to get it to, it's just some CSS to get it to the 1610? Yeah, 1610 aspect ratio. So you can just like copy this type of this CSS. You don't need like this stuff. But the CSS that I've done here to anytime you want to embed a Ractive, sort of have like 2 container divs to get the aspect ratio right, and then this iframe. Okay, and yeah, and you can just copy that from like what I've got on this server. The other thing that you need to do when placing a Ractive on a server has to do with the full screen button. So on desktop, just press full screen and it works very nicely. Mobile devices do not have a full screen, like they don't give you access to like the full screen functionality. But what you can do is sort of fake that by just getting your page to resize the iframe to be like the size of the whole page. So there's somewhere in here. Yeah, so on the site I've placed a file called fakefullscreen.js. And what this does is if you're on a mobile device and the viewer presses the full screen button, it'll detect that like it can't access the full screen API. And so it'll send a message to the parent window, something like fake full screen. Yeah, and so again, you can just like copy this this JavaScript that I've got here and use that for all your pages. And what it's doing is just like adding some listeners such that anytime it receives fake full screen, it'll update some CSS values. So you have to put this fake full screen JS file on your server, and then you also need to add a little bit of CSS for the fake full screen. I have that up here. Yeah, so that's documented here in the authoring section, in the section of like things you need to do to make stuff work on mobile. And so here's the JavaScript code you need, and then here's the CSS code you need. So this will, if you access the page on a mobile device, this will fake the full screen behavior to make it work smoothly. So that's just the compressed all the different stages of creating a Ractive. So maybe I'll now go back and do this try to do this last step for making thumbnail previews. So right now it's sort of displaying nothing, which is not very nice. So this is also a bit of a process. So first we need to download, there's a separate plugin for doing thumb captures. So I have to download, so you have to download this extension for Chrome. So I think I have this, well, I do have it on my downloaded already, but for the demo, let's just clone this, although we only need, we don't need the whole repository, we only need sort of the extension. cd rp capture / extension. So the thumb capturing plugin only works on Chrome for now. Also don't know if it'll work on Chromium. So need to go into extensions. Okay, so in Chromium, or in Chrome, we have to go into extensions, enable developer mode to let you install like unofficial extensions, and then we'll go load unpacked. So load unpacked, and then select this extension. Okay, so now we have this Ractive Video Thumbnail Generator extension. So we will go in here. All right. So to record thumbs, we again need to uncomment some stuff. So import thumb capture. So this is the JavaScript part of this in our, and then here we'll have another player control for doing the thumbnail capture. And so if we record that, now we have this new little button for that icon is supposed to be a picture of a thumbnail. So it's still a little bit of a process to configure this. Okay, so we've done this. Oh yeah, so we need to do, you have to specifically say like which domains an extension is allowed to run on and allowed to like access your screen to, screen capture. So we have to go in this extension file, we have to go into manifest.json and enter our domain here. I'd really like there to be an easier way to do this, but I don't know if there is. So localhost 8080, and since we're using the demo site, or sorry, the documentation site for some of the recording, I'll also put that in to make sure I can use it. So Ractive-Player.org. Okay, so if we allow that, we refresh. Okay, maybe you're not allowed to do ports. Okay, so I think that'll work. Now I refresh this. It should be, I need a, there's a button for the extension. How do I customize this control bar? I want this to be, yes. Maybe let me try this on. Oops, Ractive-Player.org. Just customize the buttons here. Extensions. Sorry, they're supposed to be. Oh, okay. So here's the button. So you have to sort of a very silly process. Before the extension's allowed to do anything on the page, you need to like click it. So right now it just sort of uses the stock logo and whatever that I copied from somewhere. So clicking on it, that is all you need to do there. And then you need to copy the extension ID. You paste the extension ID into here, and then you press record, and you don't touch it for while it does its thing. Okay, so it records, I think it captures, yes, thumbnails like every 4 seconds, so it did not produce very much, but it'll produce a whole bunch of like thumbnail sheets as PNGs, and then you save, go through and you save all of those. So then here, so again, I created an audio folder, which was not visible in the repository since, yeah, they're sort of like stored on the media server. So I'll create a new folder, thumbs, and then 0.png. So what this is like just a bunch of, I guess there's not very many screens here since the video is so short, but this is like a grid of a bunch of just like screen caps of the video. So then where thumbnails are specified in, yeah, so in index.tsx, here's where I've got, so thumb data is, you can keep this for like all of these settings for any Ractive you use. So the frequency is like every 4 seconds, width, height is the dimensions of that. And then the media URL is, so like again, if we had uploaded this to a server, we would need to upload that thumbs directory to like this CloudFront server. So now if we reload that, now we get nice thumbnail previews of yeah, what's in the video. You can also, last thing you can do is thumbs is, so that you can have highlights. So highlights will like indicate a particular part in the video. So I guess, yeah, you can do title, first Ractive, and then time. So the time you can specify a time is like, you could specify a time as like 2.602. But what I've done here is using, so here PS is script.parseStart. So that's a method that where you can plug in, like, just give it the name of a marker, and it'll give back the starting time. So I think if we just do it like this, it'll work. Oh yeah, but the previous world here because it's so soon. So let's do time or parse start intro / first. Does that work better? Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I think it was annoyed the first time that I didn't have like a 0 colon the time. So here now we've got thumbs, and there's this like special marker place in the video where it says like, here's something interesting that's happening. So then again, to put that on to get that onto your server, we'll go and you have to put the thumbs directory up, and then put the I want to after I've recorded the thumbs, I want to take them out of, or take the code for that out of here. So now go and put the uploaded bundle.js onto the server. So now this demo that we've put on our server has those nice thumbnails and like highlights. Okay, so I think I'm gonna